become who we want to be as individuals. And at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
Jordan Love hit me up the night of the draft, was just congratulating me, let me know it's time to work. A.J. Dillon was open arms.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win, and I'm like just waiting for him to do his flip.
To know that we still love each other, that's what football brings us.
Across the safety's face.
You can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media. Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host Mark, and there's one singular weekend standing between us and real NFL football. We got some preseason games standing in our way, one more round of them, and then we are back at it with the Detroit Lions taking on the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Thursday night. I'm stoked. And look, got our fantasy football drafts rolling. We got a lot of preseason kind of discussions. Again, the media cycle isn't boring. A lot of good stuff going on. Mark, how are you feeling?
Oh, man. I mean, that just kind of got me a little bit excited. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, sweet. I'm getting better at this then. It's hyping things up.
I mean, seriously, though, like high school football games start tomorrow night. You got college football coming next week. You got NFL coming in 2 weeks. I mean, we keep saying we're back, but we are actually back. Like, football is back. But, John, I've been on a TikTok addiction craze, and I want to start with this because I don't know if other people are on this craze, but obviously my For You page, I got those vertically filmed edits.
Okay, fun thing here too. New format. We're gonna test it out for this episode. If it sucks for clips, I
like it, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I don't know if you've seen any of these, John, or if other people listening have seen these. But these popped up on my For You page, and now it's the same sound, and they put like just voiceovers from the movie, and then it's just like these scenes that are just like beautifully shot scenes, but because they're vertically filmed, like this might be the next big thing. I don't know. Maybe it's just a short trend, but I've been watching these like The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, Spider-Man, Star Wars. I don't even watch Star Wars, and I watch the vertical film.
Well, you should watch Star Wars because that makes you an uncultured piece of shit. But I think they're interesting. It's obviously is catering to, the things that Gen Z spends most of their time doing, which is sitting on their phones on TikTok, and kind of repurposing some media for that, which I think is sweet. But it actually reminded me of there's like a meme going around because, like Oppenheimer, Barbenheimer weekend that happened. Everybody was joking. It was like the first time anybody's really gone to the movies since COVID. And they were saying that our attention spans are so shot now that you're going to instead have like vertically filmed Barbie, and then you're going to have like Candy Crush on the left and Subway Surfers on the right so that you can, watch the games while you get bored of the movie because all of our attention spans are so shot. And that's kind of what that reminds me of. It's like, oh, like we're too stupid to take in like a feature length film anymore. So we got to like repurpose it for TikTok and kind of make it like this, fun thing in that regard. But it's cool. And I mean, it's amazing. Like the shit that AI can do is just like nuts.
It's actually kind of getting scary. Hey, I wanted to ask you this because I've seen Joe Rogan talked to Zach Bryan and Post Malone about this on his recent episodes.
Okay.
Because you're in the music industry, AI created music, right? Like,
yeah.
What do you like? How good can that get? Because I'll give you a little background. Zach Bryan and Joe Rogan in their episodes said it would never get as good as an actual human being writing it because it's, AI's a robot, doesn't have actual emotions and feelings. But then Post Malone was like, dude, within the next year or two, they're going to be putting out better songs than I could ever write. And they're going to be doing it at a way higher clip.
Yeah, I don't know. So there's a few thoughts I've had about this, and I've had this discussion with a few people. But yeah, like there's some interesting stuff, like especially like there's a relatively like generic genre of metal that people call like gent, basically, where like you're just playing low notes on the guitar and that's basically all you're doing. So it's like one note the entire time, but different patterns. And there's this YouTube channel that runs 24/7 with just, procedurally generated like breakdown patterns. And you can just sit there and it's like, it's not very good, but it's like convincing enough. But I think like the biggest thing, and I have the same opinion on AI art. Yet I use Midjourney for a lot of stuff, honestly. You connect with artists just as much as you connect with the art that they're making, in my opinion. And so, along with there having to be AI music, which I don't think can get as good as humans, because I think good art is all about like nuance and it factors. And I don't think robots really understand those two things. And how could you possibly describe them? But also you have to kind of like to some degree fall in love with like, I think the personality or the persona at least of what's going on. And then AI needs to like kind of create that, which there's AI doing that, actually, like attaching a fake persona to the fake music, which is cool. But yeah,
some of the songs are bangers, dude. Like some of the songs are hits.
Yeah, I don't know. And like I said, I use Midjourney for art. And what I usually do though is I will generate some stuff to get the vibe that I'm going for, and then I'll send it to an actual artist and be like, hey, I'll pay you to kind of create something with this general kind of vibe to it. That's what I do with Evan for my album art and stuff like that. And me doing that for my album that's coming up, he was I sent him 3 or 4 AI pictures, and he was like, oh, that gave me the idea for the art, and he went and executed on it, which I think is cool. But I've had debates with artists on how they think it should be banned or whatever, and I'm like, well, you're not going to be able to do that, so you got to kind of get with the times and just kind of adjust it. Sorry if you think it sucks, but as an artist, I'm not offended about it, and I think that if a robot is better at me than creating something as nuanced as music or whatever, then that's my problem, not the robot's fault. So it's kind of where I'm at with it. So I don't know. Back to football discussion. Swamp Kings came out on Netflix, and there's been a lot of discussion about it. And I think the main reason why is because it was a very inoffensive version of what the Urban Meyer led kind of Gators, all that stuff. And I think that Netflix, I felt kind of the same way about the Johnny football doc, where I think they care less about telling an interesting or hard hitting part of the story, and they just care about getting kind of a Wikipedia summary version of the story out there, and it makes it more accessible to the people that maybe aren't the biggest football fans, and it's just whatever. There's nothing special about that.
Yeah, it's a short. I mean, it's an hour-long episode. They don't do. It's not multiple episodes. It's just one thing, and it's hard to tell an entire story because let's be honest, Johnny Manziel's story and the Swamp Kings, Urban Meyer, Florida Gators story would require 4 or 5 hours to truly dissect and interview all the right people and get the right content put together to tell actually what happened and what it was like.
Even then, the doc made Urban Meyer look, like a freaking angel.
Well, you understand why that is, right? You understand. I have a little prediction. It's dropped at the perfect time. They're trying to get Urban Meyer's image back
better,
so he can coach again.
Yeah, no, that's
clearly
totally
what he's doing. Do you think that he would agree to doing any sort of documentary that's going to make him look bad? That dude is one of the biggest egos of all time.
Yeah, that is absolutely 100% what they're trying to do. And as a Michigan fan that's been dealing with this turd for, a decent amount of my lifetime, I freaking hate that. And I hate Urban Meyer, and he's an egotistical piece of shit. I completely agree. And that stuff gets under my skin because of the fact that I don't think that dude should ever be allotted a coaching opportunity ever again with, how he handled essentially the NFL job and how he's, the track record of how he's treated players, coaching staff, his wife. I mean, don't forget everybody. Urban Meyer has stinky fingers. Stinky fingers.
I'll tell you this, dude. As much as I don't like Urban Meyer, the dude fucking wins.
He wins football games.
All he does is win football games. And I'll tell you this: there's worse people than him actively coaching in the NFL and college football. 110%.
I don't think that's inaccurate either, but I think that, he's just, again, he has a track record of mistreating his players, mistreating his coaches, cheating on his wife, list goes on. Not a good dude.
A lot of coaches aren't great people off the field, man. If you win, You'll find some opportunity.
Winning cures everything.
Winning cures absolutely everything.
That is the
And
old saying.
That dude, he wins, man.
Other pretty notable NFL news is that after a back and forth for what feels like weeks at this point, Jonathon Taylor has finally received permission from the Colts to find a trade by next week, basically.
How about Irsay? Just like, I mean, what, a week and a half ago, I think in last week's episode, we're talking about how this dude tweeted, "We'll never trade you. Well, I'll cut you before I trade you, and no one will ever remember who you even are. Like, no one cares about you."
He's crazy.
And then
Uncle Jim,
within,
man.
like, what is going? Like, if you're gonna tweet something that crazy, or you're gonna publicly talk about your star player in that manner, and then a week later you're just gonna fold and at least stand by your word if you're gonna say crazy shit like that.
It's another Tuesday for him, and that's exactly it.
Like what?
And,
like what happened between, what happened between last, what he was saying last week to, or
nothing.
That's fine. JT, you know what? We'll trade you. We'll give you your wishes. Like what?
He
what is
woke
going
up
on?
on a different side of the bed. Is basically what happened. And the thing is that it's hilarious because all of a sudden, kind of what you're saying, like he's saying you're dust in the wind in the grand scheme of the NFL. You won't matter. All these like weird like existential things about the dude wanting a pay raise. And now instead of saying, hey, you're not worth 10, 11, 12 million dollars. I think maybe Taylor asked for 14, but he probably would have settled for 12 if they were willing to give him that or whatever. You're not worth $12 million to us, but if we were to trade you, you're worth a first round draft pick. Like that's ass backwards too. Like it makes no sense.
It didn't help his cause by publicly saying how irrelevant Jonathon Taylor is to the league and to what people view him as. So I don't know, man, but it's pretty weird. And all I can say is that Indianapolis is a shit fire right now. It is just terrible. It is. And they just named Anthony Richardson as their starter, which I think is premature as shit. And we'll get into it. We have some film and we'll get into that division here.
Oh yeah. By the way, it's AFC South.
It's AFC South. So it just so worked out. It just so worked out that this Jonathon Taylor news comes out.
We made it 12 minutes into the episode before mentioning, yes, we are covering the AFC South Division for this episode.
I mean, you'll be able to tell by the
title. It'll
the
be on the
title and the cover. But I mean, here, like, it just so worked out that we have a lot of Colts stuff, and we already talked Urban Meyer, who is Jags coach. It just kind of works out.
It does. Everything kind of ties nice and neatly together.
Ohio State, Stroud, Texans. It kind of all comes together.
All full circle. Small world that the NFL is. So I think there's 3 highly interested parties that either have already made an offer or going to make an offer, according to the rumblings of the news. If you had to guess who those 3 teams are trying to bid for Jonathon Taylor, who would that be?
I haven't seen this or heard this. Bidding for Jonathon Taylor. One of them, I'm going to say the Vikings.
Okay. I think that might be accurate.
Do you know the 3?
I don't know. We don't know the 3.
Oh, we don't know the 3.
No, this is
I thought
up
you
to
meant
your
that
speculation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Vikings would be one of them for me. Cowboys would be one of them for me, just because they're the Cowboys and think they can get their hands on anybody. Trying to think of who else really want. Maybe the Steelers or the Ravens.
I think the Steelers are happy with Najee. I think the Ravens are happy with who they got going. I agree with you on the first 2. I think Cowboys and Vikings were one of the first 2 that came to mind, and then Bears was the other one for me. I think the Bears might be interested as well. Especially they're sitting on a fat pile of cash. Same thing with Cleveland has like a ridiculous amount of cap space right now, like $35 million or something like that. I don't know what they're planning on doing with it. Is the thing. Like, are they looking to go and try to grab a guy like Jonathon Taylor?
They need to get a superstar receiver that isn't Amari Cooper. I mean, Amari Cooper is great and all, but they need to get a legitimate superstar receiver. They should have went and got D-Hop and teamed him back up with Watson. They were so good together in Houston.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. All right. Now we have your fantasy lineup, and judging that, we have
Mhm.
a little other preseason rumblings, then we'll hop into the division. So we will get going right on that.
Yeah, let's get
So-
into this is my drafted team from a few nights ago.
10-person team.
Yeah, 10-person league. Unlike Vocal here, I am doing one fantasy league this year. I am not doing multiple. I'm
Doing
committing
3 this year.
my management skills to this one league. Listen, football is quite literally this time of year like 80% of my life. I coach,
Right.
I have a football podcast, I make short form content like every single day for that podcast. I make one long form episode a week. I watch football nonstop if it's on, and I manage a fantasy football team. I'm not doing more than one league. That's where I drew the line. But this was the team I drafted, 10-man league. I had the 4th overall pick with this. I'm going to kind of break through how I drafted. I took Kelsey 4th overall. Now, I want people to understand crazy. In my draft, it went Justin Jefferson, Cup, Chase. So Eckler, McCaffrey, everyone was still on the board. And I still chose to go with Kelsey.
I do not know how I feel about Cup going that high. Not because of Cup,
You know who
but-
took him?
Who?
Twan.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's 2nd overall. So,
Okay.
I mean, listen, I was shocked that McCaffrey and Eckler were there, but I was set before the draft. I was taking Kelsey. I still like it because, as you can see, my running backs with Mixon and David Montgomery and Javonte Williams and Swift are a lot of risk with those guys. But if I even get 1 or 2 of those guys to pay off, or if none of them pay off, I'll trade Kelsey and get running back value. So
Yeah,
if
I think personally, I look at this and I see running back depth. I think really the only risky guy out of all of this is Swift, in my opinion. I think that's the
Swift. You don't
biggest
know
risk.
what his carry load's going to look like.
Right.
Javante's coming off of an injury, so you never know for sure what he's going to look like.
Right.
Mixon is in a passing first offense, but he's the guy because P. Ryan is now with Denver, and
Right.
Montgomery has Gibbs. So like there's some risk with all these guys, but I mean 1 or 2 of these guys should pan out for me. I think it's likely that at least 3 of them do. And then you have Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel as my receivers. You add Christian Kirk, Elijah Moore, OBJ into that mix, and then Josh Allen and Geno Smith as my quarterbacks. I mean, not a ton of weakness
Yeah,
I
I
my
like
lineup.
it for
Obviously,
sure.
it's a 10-man, so you're going to like your team almost always. But I thought I did okay with the fourth pick overall. So either
No,
roast
I
me
like it a lot.
or tell me you like it if you're listening to this and let us know what you think. But
Yeah, I would say, the only thing that kind of stuck out to me is like Deebo is one of my favorite players on the field. His fantasy production has always kind of been mid-tier just because of the fact that they spread the ball out so much, and so he's not usually super consistent fantasy-wise. Other than that, I mean, I think you've got, Elijah Moore, I think was a great pickup. I think he's going to see, a lot of looks. You're mentioning that, Brown's not having a ton of receiver depth. I think he'll get a lot of targets. So, yeah, I'm a fan of it. And we were talking about this before, but, Christian Kirk here, like, I mean, were you bummed that you weren't able to grab Calvin Ridley? And did
very
somebody
bummed.
jump
Three picks
20 rungs?
before me.
Gotcha.
I had him highlighted. I was going to take him with my next pick, and he wasn't even on the big board. Like when you're drafting and it shows that the best available, he wasn't even on it. So somebody scrolled to find him and took him 3 picks before I was up. So yeah, that one hurt. I may try to trade for him. I really like him. I would be willing to trade a couple guys for him. So I think he's going to be a top 5 receiver fantasy wise this year.
I think he'll be
honestly
up
do.
there. No, I think you're totally right. Hopping into this is
My
just me.
DMs.
Yeah, there we go. Sliding right in, hitting you with the WID, you up. So look, I said this in a lot in the pre-draft process. I already talked about him a little bit when I did the mock draft with Zach guest hosting. But this has become the narrative right now is that DTR, and this is coming from Brett Coleman. Brett Coleman knows ball. DTR would probably start on like 4 or 5 teams right now. And honestly,
Jock, I give you some credit because we give each other shit on this podcast, rightfully so. We have takes that go horrific, just terribly, horribly wrong. And when that happens, we roast each other pretty hard. John called this in the draft process before he was taken by Cleveland, that he thinks that DTR is going to be one of the better quarterbacks in this draft. And I watched some of the film he was sending me, some of the stuff Brett Coleman was putting out about it, and I didn't disagree, but I was like, I wasn't incredibly impressed. And John was like, no, dude, I'm telling you, like he could be maybe top 2, top 3 quarterbacks in this class. And I was like, it's kind of a reach. Now it's early, and I'm not going to fully say that you're correct, but he is definitely turning heads.
And he's stuck sitting behind Watson. And if Watson gets injured, he'll get an opportunity. But I mean, this might be a guy that you don't hear much about for, 2 or 3 years. And all of a sudden he comes on the scene like freaking wildfire because he's been developing under Watson and he's ready to play. And look, I mean, I got to give Mark his flowers too, obviously. Like Mark very early on in the process was like, Sam Darnold might end up starting for the 49ers. And it could actually be a good thing, not a bad thing. Sure enough, right? Other big NFL news is Trey Lance is probably going to get traded away or cut, which officially makes Sam Darnold QB2, and Brock Purdy is still kind of on the mend from an injury. And while it sounds like he's for certain going to start week 1, just something to keep an eye on. So, I guess Mark and I are paying enough attention where we're getting things right here. And
John, you and I might just know some ball.
We know a little ball. I think we know a little ball. Okay, thanks for the fucking closed captions taking that pass away. Let's restart that. Yeah, I mean, look, just his passing accuracy has looked really good. He's mobile enough where he can, like scramble and kind of do some interesting things there. And then what's been fun is the past couple of games, he has thrown some ridiculous lead blocks for as a quarterback for the run plays. He actually had a penalty in this game because they were saying it was a blindside block, which,
by the way, that route, John, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Disgusting. Slow go, slant and go. Look at the route real quick. When it plays back from the top here.
Yeah.
Watch this. Slant, go.
Yeah.
Sold the shit out of it, and then go high point a back shoulder ball. That's high level football right there by both quarterback and receiver play. I'll tell you that much.
No, it's exciting. And again, like, this is probably going to be the last time we see DTR for a minute is next week, but I will be watching because I'm very interested in what could be with this player. So
John, a little side note with you saying that. What's your take on starters getting more reps here in preseason? And when I say starters, I'm talking especially like Aaron Rodgers-esque level players that have been around the league for 15 plus years that have proven themselves time and time again. Now, Tom Brady always did this. He always got at least one series in preseason football. He said it was incredibly important for him and that first unit to get out there. But we've seen guys like Julian Edelman tear their ACL in preseason before. So
yeah, I think the way that preseason is now is a lot better to get your starters the kind of reps that you want while still having a little bit more control over the situation. And that's Dan Campbell, I think, was asked directly about this. He's like, hey, like, are your starters going to see a single down in preseason this year? And they did last year, right? I mean, they played, one drive the first game. I don't think they got out there the second game, and they played like a quarter, or so the third game. But he's pretty much saying, they're not going to see the field for preseason, and the reason why is because of the joint practices. They're allowed to have more control over the situation. They're allowed to kind of add pressure and kind of get those looks that they want without putting as much risk on the starters. And then, for Lions practice yesterday, they were like full live tackling, like simulated a game. It was offense versus the defense, and so I think combination of all those things kind of gives the starters enough live reps. And honestly, like, I think it's dumb to have your starter play any more than a couple drives at max for the preseason. I think it's very high risk, and I don't know why you would do that to your football team. I think, it's better to maybe come out sluggish a little bit the first drive or two, or maybe quarter of your very first game to start your 18-week NFL season than it is to, try to get them reps in the preseason and risk that they, tear an ACL or, even more minor shit like pull it. I mean, JSN just broke his hand. He's probably out for the next 4 to 5 weeks, it sounds like. I mean, that change, if you're a rookie, right, all of a sudden you're trying to get preseason reps, and now you're not going to get like the true live reps that you actually need to get to develop as a player for 5 weeks because you broke your hand in preseason. I don't get it. Terry McLaurin, turf toe, which we're going to get into the Commanders in a second here before we hop in the division. So that's my take. I mean, I don't know. It goes both ways. I think different situations call for different amount of reps, but I think overall, if you can protect your starters, you should probably protect your starters. I mean,
Yeah, because I mean, in Hard Knocks, the new episode, I watched it last night. Rodgers is going to play in the next game, the third game, and their coach was saying he wants to do it so that Rodgers' first experience in a home Jets uniform isn't their first game. It's like get that out of the way, kind of. So I mean, but again, Rodgers has played in bigger moments than just a normal Jets home game. So
right.
I don't know.
And then so the other thing here, and I was trying to construct a way to talk about this that isn't insulting to Patrick Mahomes, because I have zero.
Yeah, you have to be very careful about this because I've given you your flowers, and if you say what I think you might say,
right, I think that the way that Sam Howell played under Eric Bieniemy's scheme in the preseason against the Baltimore Ravens was pretty significant, in the sense that I saw so much KC level execution out of a not very talented, fresh quarterback, playing in, obviously a preseason game, but against starters. Like, I was impressed. I was really impressed with what it looked like. People were going on Twitter and saying like absolutely dumb shit, like, Patrick Mahomes is just, playing in a system or whatever. I do not mean to say that whatsoever, but I couldn't help but be very impressed by what the Commanders looked like offensively for this preseason game. And, these two plays I'm going to show aren't very special in the sense that they're like, mind-blowing, athletic plays or scheme wise or anything, but I'm watching these plays through this game and I'm seeing, like these are Kansas City style plays. Like clearly Eric Bieniemy knows how to use these new pieces around him in a way that they're effective. And I mean, this play with, I think it's Gibson here that, he comes out and
Texas route.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
You see that block by
the
end?
Totally unnecessary too. Just absolutely decks the guy.
Send the message.
Yeah, I guess so. In preseason, I mean,
was that a penalty?
I don't know if it was or not,
dude. I mean,
I don't remember.
Yeah, listen. I mean, Sam Howell. Listen, the Commanders are projected to be really, really bad, and I don't know if they're gonna be as bad as people really do think, because of some of the things you said, but I would slow down on the giving Bieniemy and Howell too much credit yet. It's still preseason,
What would be a successful season as far as Bieniemy's first year with the Commanders in your eyes? Because I look at them and I'm like, man, if you flirt with 500, I would be pretty impressed.
I don't think it's necessarily about wins and losses because, he's not the head coach, he's the OC. So really for him to be successful, the Commanders' offense needs to be, I think, a top 12 offense. I think if they're a top 12, because, I mean, here's the thing. He's considered an offensive guru, one of the best offensive minds in football because of where he's coming from, because of what he's done in Kansas City. Now, he has so much more pressure because is it Andy Reid or is it him? And this is his first year, his first opportunity to show that truly, and he doesn't have a ton of talent to do that with. So if he's a top 12, top 15 offense, I think that he has proven himself in a positive way. If he's below that, people are going to start to wonder.
I personally view this move by the Commanders as first of all, Rivera, you're in the hot seat, but I think that's more than obvious at this point. Then also, Mr. Bieniemy, here is your year-long job interview. You go and you show us that you can scheme up offense and it wasn't just all Andy Reid. We might hand you the keys to being the head coach and you have full control over what you do, not only with the offense, but the entire team. That's at least kind of how I view it. So we'll see.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I genuinely think he wouldn't have left KC if that wasn't kind of some of the conversations that took place around this OC opportunity for the Commanders. So no longer living in Andy Reid's shadow. We'll see what happens with it. Okay. AFC South, I believe the order is going to be Titans, Texans, Colts, Jags. I think we'll see. Memory isn't great, I guess, but
Just guessing. Hey, we'll be it as it goes. Okay, we'll figure it out.
yeah.
But we'll jump into the film. This is the first play. And really, what I want to show here, the emphasis before we actually watch the play, defensive scheme, it can really take you a far way. And it's not only just the scheme. If you interview certain players that have been with Mike Vrabel and the Titans for a while, he's more of an offensive guy. But at heart, I think he still loves defense. He played both as a player. He's a Belichick guy, so he understands the importance of what your culture is. And the best way to find your culture is to watch how your defense plays. And the Titans have been a really difficult team. In the quarterback documentary on Netflix, Patrick Mahomes during that Tennessee week was talking about how difficult they are to prepare for, even on a down year where they maybe don't win as many games. They're going to give you a tough battle defensively every single time. I mean, you remember, I think they started Malik Willis and they almost beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead. And
he completed 0 passes that entire game. I mean,
your culture, again, you're hanging on for dear life to that culture that Vrabel has instilled in these guys. And, it's just aggressive. It's smart defense. It's disciplined. And you're playing as one full unit. Now, this is just film studies seeing, and if you go back to the beginning, John, you'll see kind of a shift, a movement of what their defense does here. And it's what happens is they recognize when Jalen Waddle's off the ball here as the wideout to the top of the screen, they did this jet handoff weeks prior. And so what this is they turned it into an auto blitz off the edge if they see this. And so they recognize it. They slide the defensive end down. They bring the linebacker up. They roll the safety down, and they blitz the linebacker, and that they stuff this play for a loss.
And I was about to say it gets just enough contact on Waddle here to slow him down.
It's film recognition, right? And this is just being really, really smart schematically and understanding what your opponent will do with certain formations and stuff. And this is on Mike McDaniel for not having more variety out of this look so that it's not as obvious what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's impressive.
I mean, seriously, look at the linebacker slides over, the safety comes down, and the front side linebacker comes all the way up to the line of scrimmage and blitzes off the edge. So they knew what was coming the second they saw this formation. So that's next level shit. And if you as a defense can guess right like this, you're going to be in a good situation most of the time.
Very disciplined stuff for sure. Hey, just because I saw the ticker going by and that's what it exists for, I assume you forgot to sign up for the ACT. Again,
I can't during football season.
So we're gonna get to the other side of football season before
once the coaching part of it's done, I can take it because I'll be busy every Saturday morning, which is when it would be, unless you want me to miss.
I do.
Coaching.
Actually, you should feel uncomfortable.
I can't miss coaching high school kids. You should take a high school test.
Yes, you can. That's what you lose bets for, is to do some embarrassing, inconvenient shit. And we're talking about, it's going to be the year anniversary of you.
Let me just celebrate like a Lions playoff berth with the ACT. How hard is that?
Like, am I gonna have to send like somebody to like bust your kneecaps, dude, like a loan
there's no
chart?
Kneecaps that are gonna need to be busted, dude.
Dan Campbell's gonna come and
I'm gonna go get a 36 on the damn ACT, and I'm gonna do it wearing.
You have to sign up for it first to do that. Unbelievable.
I've been studying.
Shut up. I'm pissed about that. I'm actually angry at you currently, but I'm not angry about. DeAndre Hopkins' hands. It's got some skills.
Well, here's what people forget is this guy has done it for a long time in the league, very consistent at what he does. And the Titans are getting this guy still, I think, at the peak of his career. I really don't think he's fallen off that much. A lot of people think he has. He wasn't in a great situation in Arizona these last 2 years with Kyler. And
he still was productive there, too.
He still was productive, man. When he played, he was productive. He was on a bad team. There's nobody quite like him. You've heard Bill Belichick talk about him in the media. If you could build a receiver, this is what you would do. Long, huge hands, can run routes well, can high point the football. he's the definition, he's the dictionary picture of what a receiver should look like and should play like. And, I think he's got a few good years left in him, and they're going to need it in Tennessee because they are young at the receiver position. They don't have a ton of playmaking ability. Honestly, they have some big bodies and guys that can run a little bit, but they don't really have guys that are have mastered the craft of the position. And he's going to help that receiver room greatly. He's going to make everyone around him better, and he's going to make the quarterback's job a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, and they don't have a ton of help offensively, and Tannehill is a very average quarterback. So I'm curious to see how plugging him into the system is going to affect their ability to win games. And again, like this is a relatively weak division. Like there's an opportunity to make the playoffs just by means of winning your division and just kind of going 500. So I honestly, I think they're in an interesting spot, the Titans are, because, moving on from their management, which means their team building philosophy is changing. There's, again, it might be called a reload rather than a rebuild. Obviously, they're keeping Vrabel, but it's an interesting situation.
So the question I have, though, John, to throw some shade at the Tennessee Titans as a franchise, why the hell wouldn't you have just signed A.J. Brown to an extension?
Because different management. You had a dumbass manager making dumbass decisions,
but
and now you got to make up for that.
I mean, obviously, Vrabel's been very clear he wanted to keep A.J. Brown, and
yeah,
I understand the management change, but younger, probably more talented receiver right now, A.J. Brown, you could have probably paid him less than you just paid DeAndre Hopkins to have him stick around.
Totally.
I just don't know. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is much older. He's not in his, prime. It just doesn't. That's always going to be a question mark. That's always going to be a head scratcher for that franchise.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. And then, why am I forgetting his name? Who did they pick after trading
AJ Burks?
Burks. I'm curious. He had he didn't have a bad rookie season, but it was quiet. I'm curious
he's not
now.
AJ Brown and he's not DeAndre Hopkins.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm heading to is now that he has, a legitimate receiver threat on the other side of him. I'm kind of curious to see how he performs this season. Right. So, moving on, there's not a ton of Titans film to watch. Sorry. There's a lot of things going on over there. But look, they're going to be rock solid defensively. They're always going to put up a good fight, regardless of what their offensive talent is looking like. And they've made some moves. So we'll see what happens there. And another team to feel kind of optimistic about is the Texans. With DeMeco Ryans plugging in as their head coach, who obviously coming from the Shanahan tree, but is on the defensive side of the ball. I think that the Texans are actually pretty talented all around, and I think them kind of grabbing their star edge rusher and their star, quarterback for the next few years was a great way to just kind of rip that Band-Aid off and see what you can build around those two guys on both sides of the ball. So one guy they definitely have is Dameon Pierce, who I think was one of the less appreciated rookie running backs last season. I mean, dude can play, and I'm expecting similar production out of him. Texans offensive line honestly doesn't get enough credit either. They're pretty dang good. So
he runs hard, man. I like him a lot. I really do. I think he's going to take another step forward, and be one of the top running backs in the league this year. And he's right behind our guy Troy Harrison, the Bash brothers.
Yeah, I definitely have my eyes on him fantasy-wise, too. I think he's going to be pretty productive, and I do not see him going very high in most drafts either. But, I mean, again, you want to kind of avoid those 1-2 punch running back tandems because you want a guy that's going to obviously just get fed the ball as much as possible in fantasy. He's going to be that guy. And, again, not a bad offensive line, had a pretty good rookie season. So 100% something to keep your eyes on. This other one is kind of talking, this is 49ers film kind of showing some schematics of DeMeco Ryans defensive philosophy.
This is just showing kind of a little bit of what DeMeco Ryans did. It's showing what the Rams tried to do to attack it. But really what the biggest thing is, it's stunts, right? DeMeco Ryans is great at getting pressure on the quarterback. And if you can get pressure on the quarterback, you can create problems for anyone that you play against. I don't care if it's Patrick Mahomes. I don't care if it's Matt Stafford. I don't care if it's someone as young as Bryce Young, right? Like you will be able to have pressure on the quarterback and change what they have to do offensively. And again, it's going to be, he went after Will Anderson, got their guy. He wants to use him as a pass rusher. They have other guys that they're going to try to use to help Will Anderson get home and get to the quarterback and make plays happen. But I mean, when you have guys like Boza and Fred Warner, like obviously it's a little easier, but the system's the system. I mean, you're gonna help these guys who are great athletes make
So
plays.
impressive. Yeah.
And it's just schematically being smart and understanding that, calling this stunt at the right time is what D'Amico Ryans was great at. I mean, here you see open, right? So it's obviously going to be some kind of pass play, and down and distance, everything matters. And D'Amico Ryans has a plan for each situation. But here you're going to see him, and against an open look that Dallas is running, it's a no-brainer to stunt Boza, your best pass rusher, inside, try to get, pressure in Dak's face right now. And you're going to use arcs from the left side and the right side to create that vacancy. And you'll see Boza comes free because 52, the left guard here, is scanning the left side. And by the time he recognizes what's happening, it's too late.
It's way too late.
And that pressure, there's nothing worse for a quarterback than pressure right in the middle.
You can't do anything about it.
Can't do anything about it.
And I was talking to JP Kirby the other day, who has come on the show and, chatted some Titans football. And, he said like the other day, which I was like, because, I talk about how important trenches play is, right? And how, O-line, D-line, I mean, you don't have a team unless you kind of have some strengths up there. He's like, well, that just boils down to the idea that the greatest currency in the NFL is just quarterback time in general. If you're to really consolidate all of team building, scheme, everything down to one thing and make that the currency, it's just how much time does the quarterback have? And that's why, being able to scheme guys like Warner and Bosa to have these crazy stunts that turn into sacks is impressive.
And make no mistake that's what D'Amico Ryans is going to bring to Houston. Like, absolutely. He's gonna be the same system. It might not be as good of a defense just because of the lack of players compared to those 49ers teams, but it's going to be pretty damn similar in terms of what they're trying to do. And if they execute at a high level, that defense is going to be very, very difficult to go against. And I think the Texans offense is going to take a step forward. And so,
they made a move defensively to try. And
they made a move offensively. They said, we're going to get our guys, like you said, we're going to get our guys on D. And we're going to get our guys on O for the future. And we're going to do it right here, right now. And we're going to ride with it. Yeah, we're going to live with this decision. And that's what they did.
Will Anderson might not be, he maybe wasn't the most physically gifted draft prospect or any of that, but he is 100% the safest by far and away edge prospect of this last draft class. Multi-year starter at Alabama. I mean, just sacks, tackles for loss. That's pretty much his entire career there. He's a great player, incredibly smart football guy. It was very bold for them to do what they did in the draft, but I think it's going to pay off because I think Will Anderson's, going to probably be in a Texans jersey for a decade. I mean, he's
a stud, dude. Like he's was the dominant player in college football for several seasons, and I was surprised that he didn't go higher in the draft than he did, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of teams being as quarterback needy as they were. But I mean,
but you saw clearly the Texans valued him as a number one pick because they took Stroud and they said, we're going to, I mean, I honestly think if they didn't do that trade, the Texans would maybe have taken him over Stroud, but I think they knew they were going to do it and said, screw it. We're going to get both.
Get both of them. And he's a complete game changer. And I'm excited to see the matchup of him and, D'Amico Ryans' defensive scheming and see what they're able to do with him. Because he can execute. And that's probably why they went and got him. Then obviously the other side of this is CJ Stroud, who, I think like the main thing that, I'm kind of using to denote CJ Stroud here is just accuracy. He's a very accurate passer.
And this is against the Georgia defense, which is about as close to NFL caliber defense as you can get. And obviously Stroud hasn't had a great preseason yet, but I'd never get too high or too low on anybody in preseason football. When the lights are on in a college football playoff game against the best team that they were going to see, and one of the best teams we've seen in a long time, he shined.
Yeah, he definitely rose to the occasion. And look, I think, the two comps that I'm hearing at the NFL level for him is kind of like Tua and Goff are kind of the two that I've heard. I think those are both pretty accurate. He has great vision, he has great accuracy. He's not like a crazy deep ball guy, but honestly, he didn't need it in college because he was surrounded by just absolutely ridiculous receiving talent all 4 years. I'm curious to see, how he performs with it being, I guess, a little bit more, the playing field being a little bit more level, where he doesn't have 2 to 3 receiving options that are just straight up better than the other guys that they're facing off against. But, he has weapons there, and I'm definitely interested to see how that pans out. And I'm sure they're probably going to try to get him some more weapons in future drafts too. I think that's probably a problem area they're going to try to address. So,
John, as I watch this, you just think about the course of like college football history if Ohio State would have won this game.
Yeah, I don't like spending too much time thinking about that, obviously.
And they should have won it.
Yeah, it was a crazy game. And then just some of the NFL looks that he's giving, he's a pretty good pass here.
And you see the similarity of the accuracy that he's clearly hasn't skipped a beat when it comes to that. Now it just has to come down to processing quicker, reacting faster to what the defense is doing. You're going to see much more complex looks. You're going to see much better overall talent when you're getting sacked. It's going to be harder to avoid it. You won't have as much time to make decisions like he had in college. So that's what he has to adjust to.
Him.
This is one of the best. This is probably his best play of the preseason so far. Really good job selling the play action and on the run to flick of the wrist to put it that accurately that's why he's drafted so high. And that's what they expect him to do in Houston. And I think he's capable of doing it. I really do.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this season might not be the greatest for the Texans. I'm not totally sure how it all pans out. But I will say, I think this is the right guy that you want to try to develop with. He's in a good system with a very impressive coach, and we'll kind of see what happens with it. So, and then, I have to try to, we have some Anthony Richardson stuff, and, I tried to do like 2 good plays and then kind of a knock on him. I think the problem with this one, and I'm no quarterback, so Mark, if you want to add some extra commentary, feel free. I think he just gets laser focused on who he wants his target to be. He does actually kind of go through his progressions here, but he runs out of options and he just tries to essentially force the ball to his third option.
Yeah, he tries to force it, no doubt about it. But also, this is more a great play by the defender and by the defense than it is a bad play by Stroud. I mean, Stroud, when he comes down to his check down, he originally saw Jack Campbell bailing to the curl flat outside. So he sees him do that. When he scrambles, he takes his eyes off of him. And when he comes back to the receiver inside, the second he threw it, he probably was like, oh shit. Because I don't think he knew Campbell dropped back underneath that guy.
Right.
So again,
great defensive play from Campbell. Great defensive
play. Yeah. Obviously, Stroud's got to see it, but he has to avoid pressure and then turns and throws. And he probably just rushed that scramble throw and didn't think. And I mean, honestly, this not very often would linebackers do this. Leave their zone to go read the quarterback's next zone. It's impressive. The range is more impressive there from Jack Campbell than the error by Stroud, but it's an interception. It can't happen. And he's going to see stuff like this in the NFL more often. So he has to be.
Yeah, more and more linebackers have that kind of ability to not only identify what's going on that quickly, but also actually kind of, drop into coverage. So moving on to the Colts. And as we kind
of talk about the trenches.
I like
nothing is better than watching a guard pull. Nothing is better. That's one of the. I think. Listen, when you talk about what do you like to watch in the game of football, it's a beautiful, beautiful fucking sport, right? It's just an amazing thing to watch. All these guys can make plays outside. Quarterbacks can do crazy things, scrambling and throwing. Receivers make all these crazy plays, highlight reels. Running backs jump over people, spin, break tackles. But if you just watch what Quentin Nelson and several of these offensive linemen do at their size, the physicality and the athleticism that these guys have, being big boys like they are, that's what football's about. Like this is what I like to watch more than anything in the entire world when it comes to football. This is it.
Yeah, and I can agree. Playing guard most of my high school career, getting the opportunity to pull probably one of the greatest things that you can do, because it's pretty much saying, hey, like, go hit a guy that doesn't necessarily see you coming. And if you're good at that, it's also turns into, a pretty good thing for your team most of the time. I mean, just
look at the
absolutely take
recognition.
this dude out.
You see the recognition on the pass. I mean, from the recognition from where he is to see. Look at this.
And it's like, what the hell happened with this offensive line this last year, man? Because they're good. They're all 5 guys on that line are talented as shit. The Colts for a while, that was their staple, is that, hey, man, like, we can run the freaking football. And last year, it just wasn't there. I think Matt Ryan was one of the top 3 most hit quarterbacks in the league. So it's like, I'm not sure what the hell happened. I think it will bounce back and be a little bit better next season. But they have all this talent on the offensive line, and hopefully it's just better utilized, I guess, because it wasn't last year. And I mean, I kind of think you see in the second play here, like, the tackles kind of even giving up on the play when Matt Ryan scrambles, and they're just kind of like, just kind of stop pushing before the play's even over.
Unbelievable recognition, and then the ability to actually get there after noticing it. There's only a few guys in the league that can do that, and he's one
crazy,
of them.
Crazy. And I think there's another one. Yeah. So
yeah, like we said,
this is 4 pulls in 1 drive. So, I mean, he is huge for a guard too. Holy crap! I mean, he looks like he's bigger than the tackle next to him.
Yeah, I mean, this is what he's also like. Quentin Nelson is a dick. Like, he is an asshole. He is on the football field just a menace. He hates everybody in the opposite color jersey, and he sends the message very, very early and often that he's not here to just go through the motions. He's here to ruin your day.
Yeah, and no, he definitely blocks like it for sure. And then getting into some of the rookie quarterback discussion, like, Mark and I have obviously had a lot of discourse about Richardson. I think, it's no secret that both of us kind of get a little bit busty, high risk vibes from him. But you also got to take a look at, what everybody else was seeing to maybe make him the 4th overall pick in last year's draft. I think this play was pretty impressive by him. Just, the ability to kind of use his eyes to kind of bait the defense here, and then, go to the open guy in the middle of the field and just zip that ball as quickly to him before the defense can recognize what's going on. I thought it was a pretty impressive play. Here's a different angle of the same play here. But I mean, he looks to, the right hashes here just to try to kind of bait them away. And it is a pretty solid, accurate, fast pass that comes. Not necessarily a difficult pass to make once you actually make the decision to throw it there. But I thought that was pretty decent. And then also impressive was this play here. And someone else is kind of doing some analysis on this clip here that I was able to find. But just the ball placement here is really the biggest thing. I mean, I think that your ability to kind of accurately put that in a place where only a receiver can kind of catch it. I mean, that was a damn good ball. I don't know if I guess he dropped that ball, which is ridiculous. I mean, that was like right to him there.
It's a good defensive play too.
Yeah. I mean, defense was
really
right
good
on
defensive
there.
play.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, if you can consistently place balls like that, you're probably going to be in decent shape. We'll see if that's the thing, is if he is consistent. I mean, completion rate obviously really bad through college, and did not have a whole lot of experience overall too, and that stacks up against him. And it did result in a pretty stupid mistake in this particular play. I mean, I don't know what he's trying to do for this. It's just a force ball. The jump feels weird that he does. Just try to end off his. Was that
John?
off his
Can I break down this play real quick?
Yeah.
Just obviously the interception's horrible, but let's break down why it happens, because I've been in this situation as a receiver. So if you pause it right, like before you see the receiver pointing to this blitz. So if you go back a little bit, so the guy that originally lines up on this number 2 receiver at the top of the screen, he's disguising that he's not going to blitz. And as he starts to show, the slot receiver is yelling alert, 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 which means like get the ball out quick. And it's a built-in hot route basically. And I used to have to do this all the time as a slot receiver. And we were coached, anytime the guy that's lined up over me, if I think he's blitzing, I alert the quarterback. And then I have a built-in hot route in that situation. Now, what happens a lot of the time in the NFL is the defensive scheme is so good that they're baiting him into throwing this alert, which is exactly what he does out of panic, because it's what he probably did in college and ever, his entire career as a quarterback before the pros. They trap him into throwing this out route, and the corner sits on it, and he just panics and throws it anyway. And so he throws it right to the guy who, this is exactly what they wanted to happen when they showed that look. Exactly what they wanted to happen. Show pressure, get him to do an alert, and then force him to throw the ball right into the coverage that they're sitting in, and he falls for it. You can see he's uncomfortable. He's throwing off his back foot, falling away. He realized, oh shit, like they disguised it. The pressure's coming, but they rolled their coverage down. I don't have an easy option out of this. What he should have done is thrown this ball away, pump fake, scrambled, try to do something. This is the last thing you want to do, though. I mean, this is absolutely one of the worst picks I've seen in preseason, and this is the kind of thing that scares you. And this is the thing. No one had any questions about his athleticism and playmaking ability at Florida. He's a freak. He does some amazing things that nobody else can do, but he also makes plays like this. And you just, again, I'll be so damn clear, and I have been very, very clear from the beginning on him as a draft prospect. He's not ready, and they're going to throw him into the fire. And they already named him the starter, and he has not earned that yet. I mean, Gardner Minshew's had a pretty good preseason as well, and has shown in actual NFL games that can win you games. He's not ready, and they're going to throw him into the fire, and he's going to look bad at times because he's not ready to play. And honestly, also, it's not fair. But
this is my clip, by the way, and I think Mark broke it down 10 times better than I ever could, because I didn't even realize, I think that bait blitz that was happening that kind of forces him to make the bad decision.
I only know it because I was in that situation so many times. And
right, but it's impressive. I mean, it speaks to your experience, obviously.
Now, normally, I'll say this: what's safer on that bait alert is, instead of running an out route into the corner, you cross the safety's face in front of you, because now there's no help. If they truly do blitz off the edge, if you do a quick slant or a hitch, it's safer for the quarterback, because now that bait isn't as good. It's not as well placed, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So,
because if you're going where Richardson went with that ball, I mean, there's
exactly where they wanted him to go.
Waiting for him to throw it
exactly where they wanted him to go.
Yeah. Then now moving on to Jags. Look, I consider kind of last season Lawrence's rookie season because of the entire Urban Meyer shit show that he had to deal with. And man, like, he looked better and better and better with every game. And similar thing to the Lions is, like, it took them until around Thanksgiving to really figure it out. But man, once they did, it was lights out. And I think Mark and I feel pretty strongly that they're probably the most likely to win this division. They got a lot of weapons around Lawrence. Their defense is pretty dang good. They got a good coach. I mean, they're going to be ready to kick ass and take names this season.
Trevor Lawrence, we talk about in recent episodes, we broke down Justin Herbert and Mahomes' arm talent. We've broken down Josh Allen's arm talent plenty of times. And now this is an incomplete pass to drop, but the slide here and the accuracy of this throw. I mean, when he throws this ball, Christian Kirk is not open. I want people to notice when this ball's released. Right here.
That is so crazy.
He was still doubled when he throws this ball. Now, absolutely needs to be caught, but this is the kind of throw that there's only a few guys that can make in the NFL. I mean, we're talking the best of the best in the world on the biggest stage, and there's still only 4 or 5 guys that can make this throw, and he's one of them. And that's exciting. There's a reason there was so much hype around him coming out of Clemson. And he's had a full year now with Doug Peterson, and he's got a lot of good weapons around him. I think he's only going to get better. I think you put him right there in the MVP conversation this year. I really do think he takes that big of a leap. Yeah,
I mean, I think you're completely right, honestly. And again, the cast of offensive characters he has around him has improved. This is a John clip that I pulled just from this past preseason game, because there's one guy on the Jags offense in the later quarters of this preseason game that I felt like just kept consistently making plays, and it's our boy from the draft discussions with the best name in the draft, Tank Bigsby. And yeah, I mean, just think, to kind of, first of all, to recognize, okay, this is a mess. I don't want anything to do with that. And then to actually bounce outside and get some yardage. I thought this was a really impressive run. And he was making plays like the past 2 preseason games that the Jags have had. He has made a lot of similar plays to this. I do think he's actually going to be probably splitting some carries with ETN. So something to kind of look out for, I guess, fantasy wise is, he might be a bit of a sleeper. I would watch a couple games first. He's probably going to be on waivers to pick up, but something to keep an eye on here.
This throw is ridiculous, dude. I'll be honest. This is one of the better throws I've seen from the last couple seasons. From the right hash to this left sideline with a high-low coverage around the receiver. I mean, look at that's just the swagger. Like, you think you're going to pick me off, and then I just throw. I mean, that's so incredible, John.
Yeah.
He might, like, I don't know if there's, besides maybe Justin Herbert and Josh Allen, I don't even think Mahomes could get this throw there. I really don't. Like, it takes a big, strong dude to get that ball there. I really don't know.
Crazy.
And look at the swagger, the finger wag.
And then obviously he's got a new weapon that is going to be, I think, completely nuts for him this season. I think Mark and I are in strong agreement on that. We are talking about it earlier.
Very
Calvin
sad
Ridley.
I didn't get him in my fantasy draft. Very sad.
I mean, he is going to be so huge.
He's one of the best route runners in football. Like, bar none. One of the best route runners in football. You pair him with one of the best quarterbacks in football with a system that has a ton of help around him. A running game, an offensive line.
I mean, and people have short memories, man. Like, he was, he takes one season off.
Yeah, I mean, he missed a year, but like, you guys have to remember what this guy was doing in Atlanta.
That's what I'm saying.
With Matt Ryan.
I mean, he's nuts. And I cannot wait to see him and Lawrence together. And again, I mean, you still got Christian Kirk. You have, a good tight end in Engram. You have a good running back duo, and you have a decent offensive line. I mean, this offense on paper should be on fire all season. They should be torching teams.
They might be the 1 seed in the AFC. I'm saying that.
That is crazy, but you might be right.
Listen, dude, their divisions. Look at their division.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's talk about it. We talked about the Texans, Colts, and the Titans, right? Young. A lot of young people, a lot of young quarterback play, new coaches. Vrabel's probably on the hot seat as much as I gave him credit in this episode. I think he's a great coach, but he's probably on the hot seat because they've definitely not lived up to the hype the last few years. The Jags are better as a roster. I think they probably have a smarter head coach who's proven to done more as a head coach in this league, and better receivers, and arguably the best defense. I'd put them right there with the Titans as the best defense in this division. So I think they win out in their division, and then they just have to beat some, questionable teams in the rest of their schedule, and you're looking at 11, 12 wins. And if you win 11 or 12 games, you are right there flirting with the 1 seed in the AFC.
Absolutely. So, going through these, I mean, Texans 6.5. I'm going to go over here. I don't know, if they're going to get too many more wins than that, but I think 7 wins feels about right for the Texans. I think Ryans is going to have them pretty well coached up to win a few games. I think that they're more talented than they were last year. It might be rough to start the season, but I can see this kind of being a team that's going to start winning some games again, like around Thanksgiving. I mean, a lot of question marks, a lot of stuff they're going to have to figure out, but I'm feeling pretty good about their prospects for the future.
I'm going to go over for the Texans as well. But I think they're right there at 6 or 7. I don't think they do much more than that this year.
Right.
But I trust D'Amico Ryans, and I trust the development of Stroud, and I think that they have more weapons than people realize.
I'm going to go under for the Colts. Look, I mean, they pretty much have said this season is Anthony Richardson development season, and it doesn't sound like they're in the slightest worried about, how many games they're going to win, if that's what they're truly going to commit to. So I'm expecting some brutal interceptions. I'm expecting some big mistakes. I'm expecting probably even a little bit more drama than what we're already dealing with Jonathon Taylor. I mean, it sounds like it's more likely than not he's going to get shipped out. So interesting situation there. And unfortunately, I think this is probably like a 4 or 5 win team this season.
I think it's a 2 or 3 win team this season. I think they're going to be terrible. They might be the worst team in the league. Don't have a quarterback that's ready to play. You're trading away the only consistent thing that you have. Your receiving core is average. Your offensive line is supposed to be better than it is. They still have some young guys on there that need to prove themselves. And your defense has not lived up to what it was supposed to be the last couple of years. So you play one of the worst divisions in football and you only win 2 or 3 games.
Rough.
So that's kind of what I'm looking at here.
Titans, I'm going to go over right at like 8 wins. I think that they'll kind of just they'll be in the playoff chase, but they won't get there. I think the AFC is too competitive for that to be a, 8 or 9 wins, good enough of a record to make it. And I think that's kind of where I put them.
I'm going to go under for the Titans. 7.5 is a high number for what they're doing. They're inexperienced at a lot of spots. Derrick Henry's towards the end. DeAndre Hopkins is a little bit towards the end. I don't trust their quarterback play. I can't give them 8 wins. So I'm gonna go under.
Yeah, I've seen them as less talented in the past and still able to do some crazy shit. I just don't want to count Vrabel out, but I understand your argument as well. Then Jags, I mean, you've heard Mark and I discuss. I think they're going to beat the shit out of this division. So there's 6 wins right there. I mean, I think we're looking at, an 11 or 12 win team pretty easily here. So I'm going over for them.
Over. No doubt about it.
Yeah. It's
dare I say lock.
Sheesh. I don't know. But I think it's time for Duval to kind of show what they're made of this season. I mean, now or never, really. Like it's one of those franchises that has been so historically bad for so many years, and I think they finally got everything locked in and in place to go make a run this season. So, if I'm a Jags fan, I got to be pretty excited, I'd assume. So that's what we got for the AFC. We appreciate everybody checking us out. We should have merch drops the next 2 weeks here. So like right as the season's starting, as promised, we will have that merch drop ready for you guys with a makeover on the merch site, which we're stoked about. Next week, last division, NFC South. A lot of interesting things going on with that season or that division. A lot of changes going on with that division. So I'm really excited there. Make sure that you're checking us out on TikTok, on Instagram, subscribing to us on YouTube, commenting on the video, checking us out on Twitter, checking out the Discord.
Listen, as the season gets here, man, it's you're gonna get more and more out of us. We're gonna be doing every single week, breakdowns of every game. We're gonna have film. We're gonna have betting. We're gonna have all kinds of different stuff. Guests, in-season guests from all kinds of different NFL teams. Like, you don't want to miss out. So subscribe. Check us out on social medias. It's time. It's here.
Let's go, baby.
We
will see you guys with the NFC South, our last division going into the season next week. We'll see you then. Peace.
We'll see you guys.